Hey everyone, and welcome back to GMIHub Online. So glad you're here to join us today. I hope you're having a great day because the day that this is being recorded is Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day from GMIHub Online. So glad you're here. Um, Today is going to be, or tonight is going to be a very great, good, whatever conversation, excellent conversation, because if you remember, couple episodes back, well, actually, many episodes back, we were talking about rights, royalties, and licenses. If you didn't see that, definitely go and check that out. We had two episodes on that. And there were some questions that came out of that, which asked, well, what about the churches? What about artists? What if we want to get our music out to faith organizations? Well, tonight we're going to be talking about that. But before I go any further, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Dale Borland. Dale.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the GMI Hub Online. It's so glad that you're with us tonight. You know what? We are live streaming, but this is going to be left on our YouTube channel for anyone to look at later on. So if you are looking on our YouTube channel for the first time, please subscribe. If you've been here before and you subscribe, thank you very much. We have a like button. Of course, we want you to click that. And there's a little bell that just tells you, if you click it, when our next video is uploaded. So that's the YouTube experience, and you can share that with those who you care would love to hear this. This is going to be an amazing topic. A lot of conversation is going to happen that we hope is going to dig in deep. Also, I want to let you know about what we're all about is the www.gmihub.ca, our website. Go check it out. You can find out more about us. We have a newsletter which goes out monthly, and if you want to receive that newsletter into your email, just give us a little hey, my email's this, send it to me, and we would love to send it that to you. Now, also, the great thing about the Hub Happenings is if you're a promoter, a musician, an artist, or somebody who's putting an event together and you want the GMI Hub to put it into our email, that blast that goes out every month, just give us permission to do so. Let us know about it, and that Hub Happening will help grow what you are doing. So we want to welcome you and thank you so much for being here. And we're going to get to our amazing guests. Oh, this is going to be so cool as we talk about licensing, CCLI, and lots of stuff like that, because we talked about it in a previous videos. We have a few videos talking about those the things, and there's different things that we need to talk about when it comes to the church situation and music in that regard.
Thanks, Dale. And so now let me introduce you our guests. Um, I am so excited. Now, many of you have heard about CCLI, and I'm so glad that we have the Vice President and Director of Business Development of CCLI with us, Nate Scott. Nate, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me tonight.
And also, we love that we have the general manager of One License with us, Brenna C. Cronin. Brenna, so glad to have you here with us.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be with all of you.
Yeah, it's so awesome.
This is
Um,
awesome.
you know what? We have been so excited about having you all here because there have been so many questions. I mean, rights, royalties, licensing has always been a big question mark for, oh, I made a heart. That's kind of cool. Okay. Big question mark for a lot of artists and also some churches and some faith organizations that are just beginning to figure out, what licensing should we have for what we're doing. And so I'm so glad
Mhm.
that both of you are here. My first question that I'd like to throw out to you is this. I know I could probably try and describe, but I think it's better to come from you. Could you summarize briefly what you do? Like, how do you service the churches, faith organizations, and even artists? Should we start with Nate? No? Okay, we start
Sure.
with Brenna.
Oh, I was just saying either way is fine. Brenna,
Oh,
you can
okay.
go ahead if you'd like.
Brenna, go ahead.
Sure. Wonderful. Well, thank you. We at One License we serve over, my goodness, 25,000 different. We call them organizations, just as a general umbrella term. But whether you're a church, a school, a funeral home, a hospital, chapel, really and truly anywhere that that the faithful gather, and you're using music in your worship. We tend to serve churches that lean a little bit more mainline or Protestant, or even, excuse me, or liturgical in nature. So if you tend to be more of a Catholic and Reigning Protestant parish, or school, you would be associated typically with our organization. Of course, you can have a license with whoever you'd like to. It all depends on the type of music that you're looking to license. I already have a feeling that Nate and I are going to be playing off of each other a little bit tonight, because theoretically the services that we offer are quite similar, but the content that you're getting on each of them is separate. So I just want to give that as a caveat. We offer reproduction licenses or reprint licenses, for folks to print out worship aids or leaflets or put words up on a projection screen. We also offer podcast and streaming permissions, so you can put your services online or connect with folks through social media. And we offer a practice track license as well. Of course, you can email us at any time. I'll mention this right at the get-go, so that way folks, if they have questions, are more than welcome to email us after this call tonight. But it's info at onelicense.net. We're happy to help at any time. And just real quick before I pass it over to Nate, I want to mention that my colleague Sierra Ronning, she's our multimedia specialist, she is in the chat on the YouTube video this evening. So be looking for those messages of either little notes about our blog or little resources that you may want to reference after the fact, just in case we either skip over something that you would like to learn more about, or we don't have time to fit everything in this evening. So I just want to mention that, and thanks, Sierra, for being with us tonight. Nate, go ahead, take the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, CCLI, we've been serving churches around the world for 33 years. We were birthed out of the church in Portland, Oregon. We serve over 230,000 churches and schools with a variety of programs. And as Brenna was sharing what they cover, it's very similar types of activities. We cover reproduction, our church copyright license, which was our first license that we launched 33 years ago. Largely covers reproduction activity. It also covers the ability to make custom arrangements and translations of songs where a published version doesn't exist, and to record your services for shut-ins and things of that nature. But the primary use of it has been for reproduction of lyrics or song sheets for the purpose of aiding in congregational worship. We also do provide a streaming license, which has been very popular during this pandemic. When this whole thing started, 2 years ago, we thought, oh, there's going to be a lot more churches that will stream in the short term. And this thing has settled in, and it seems like church culture has changed, and streaming is here to stay. During the pandemic, as of January of last year, we launched Streaming Plus, which is a license that allows churches to include masters in their streams. The typical streaming license that we offer only includes composition. So your band's performing the song, the covered composition during the worship service. Streaming Plus would allow you to also use accompaniment tracks, multi-tracks, or just general audio files from like a streaming service in your announcement videos, intro, outro, you name it, just during the course of services. We also do have a rehearsal license that allows bands to share audio files for the purpose of aiding in rehearsing for weekend services, or generally for services at the church. That was popular years ago, but with the advent of streaming, it doesn't seem to be quite as popular, though the licenses stayed strong and churches continue to share MP3s and WAV files and other types of audio files. Maybe there's some out there that are still creating custom CDs and handing them to their band members. I'm not quite sure, but maybe you guys are tuning in and you are the ones who are still using CDs. That's great. We additionally have a Song Select. It's a distribution platform that allows churches access to lyrics, chord sheets, lead sheets, and vocal sheets. So a lead sheet would be just melody line, vocal sheet would be 3 or 4 part harmony. And that's an annual subscription service that allows churches to download up to 200 songs a year under that license. I think that covers our main offering, and as you guys probably noticed, lots of similarities between the types of activities that CCLI and One License covers. CCLI does work with a lot of mainline or traditional churches, but of course, a larger portion of our audience would be contemporary evangelical churches that would sing praise and worship music. I think
Awesome.
that's it.
Awesome. You think that's it? Just a little bit.
That's enough of me for now.
Okay, well, I'm so glad you mentioned about Song Select. And Brent, I should ask. I think I saw a similar list, but I don't know what you named that. What the name of that list is under one license, which is the list or the database of the songs.
Oh, sure. It's just our song database. There isn't a specific name for it.
Okay.
We have about 180,000 songs that are in our catalog from 300 different member publishers. And there's always new songs and new publishers that are being added each day. I helped an upload of 55 John Berlin titles earlier today. So constantly new songs that are being added to the service.
Wow, that's awesome. But I'm curious to both of you. I'm actually curious about this from the perspective of the artist, and I'm asking on behalf of the artist. Um, what does it take for their songs, especially if they have a brand new song? What are the requirements, if any, for them to get on your respective lists, whether it's Song Select or the One License database? I'm gonna choose Nate. Go first this time.
Sure. When songwriters or artists come to CCLI with the desire to get their works listed on our website, available to churches, we generally do ask them if their songs are being sung in 5 or more churches, just because the amount of effort that it takes to sign agreements and go through all of the work to register, you might not see much of a return for that effort if really there aren't many churches that are singing your works. But nonetheless, if someone wants to register with us, we will gladly welcome them in. It involves signing license agreements with CCLI and providing the proper metadata in order to register those works through our rights portal online. And once that information is there, churches can report their copy activity on those works. One important distinction that we're sure to mention to folks who are interested in registering with CCLI is that today churches identify works, they find works out on the radio, on social media, through the various platforms that are out there. Song Select isn't as much of a discovery tool, though some will find songs on Song Select with over, I think it's up to 600,000 songs that are available in our catalog. There's just a lot of works to sift through that would have the same sort of titles, the same words. Our dictionary, we have a limited set of words to use for song titles. So churches end up discovering works through daily activities and hearing it on the radio or hearing it on a streaming platform or someone sharing a work with them. And our encouragement is get your works out into the church, whether it's ministering in these places. Most definitely, that would be a great way to go out and minister, but also just be sure to release them on the different platforms and on social media. And then as you start to gain traction and have requests for sheet music and permission to use your works in church services, that's probably the best point to initiate with CCLI when you know churches are looking for those works to use, and then they'll be able to find them in our database and report their activity.
Mm.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nate. Brenna, with One License, how does it work with One License in terms of getting songs onto your database?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an application process, just like anything else. There's a questionnaire, there's a contract, etc. Nate mentioned having that metadata. It's the same thing, having your song catalog in some type of spreadsheet format. And we have a specific uploading tool for what that looks like. But really and truly, we work with individual artists as well as publishing houses. So, one of the biggest questions that we always receive is, do I need to be associated with some type of publishing house in order to then have my works put up on the site? And the answer is no. You can be an independent artist, you can be self published. That's all right. Doesn't need to be a publishing house. Of course, if it is a publishing house, then you're working with them directly to get your works up on the site. They typically have copyright and permissions folks that are in that role to help with that. But if it's just an independent author or artist themselves, they're often not only the artist, but then also the person who's actually putting the data up on the website as well. Folks can email us. We're happy to explain more about the process itself, but I would say it's relatively easy to do, and we're happy to have folks. Of course, if their music is a good fit for Catholic and mainline Protestant churches, or if they're just looking for a way, kind of like what we were talking about before the broadcast, this idea that putting music out can be really challenging, and not really knowing like how to license things yourself. So we can step in that role as the licensing agent and be able to make that process a little bit easier for you. If you are constantly, I mean, I don't know, getting emails multiple times a week about having folks use your works, that might be a really good indication to you that you should reach out to a licensing agency, as opposed to trying and uh, licensing all of those works yourself all the time, or having your own independent fee structure or whatever that happens to be. You want to be able to continue to write beautiful music and focus your efforts that way. So we can help with the administration piece.
I like the
That's
fact that
awesome.
you brought up that communication you have with what's called the collective management organizations, the CMOs, like those licensing ones like SOCAN and CMRA. How connected are you with them, or do you use them on on a ongoing basis with some of your artists?
Sure,
At
I can answer
CCLI,
that
we
first.
go ahead, Brenna.
No, all I was going to mention is that those are performing rights organizations, and we help support worship. So there's a bit of
Um,
a distinction there when it comes to performance versus worship. We don't have a direct relationship with those performing rights organizations.
all right, you talked a little bit earlier about helping the artists to get those licensing agreements with other organizations. What about those in those particular organizations? Which ones do you work with?
Sure. Do you
I,
want to maybe? I'm sorry. It looks like there's a little bit of a delay. Nate, do you want to go ahead and answer?
sure. Yeah, I think what Brenna was referring to was just when a songwriter gets to a point where they're receiving so many requests for their works that they work with a publisher who then ensures that at that point their works could be licensed to different PROs and agencies, but also would be licensed to a one license or a CCLI. And that's where a great administrator or publishing house can come in and help alleviate that load so the songwriter can continue to focus on their craft and ministering within the church. On the
Okay, so do
CCLI
they?
end, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking they
No, we
don't.
want to hear from you.
Yeah, and we do, but we don't necessarily talk about the distribution of the song in that regard.
The distribution of the song to
To like
like the
SOCAN
PROs.
or whatever. Or, sorry, not the SOCAN, to Spotify or whatever. Those platforms.
Okay. Yeah, and that might be managed by a label that would be connected with that publisher that you're working with. So uh, there are tools where an artist and songwriter could do that on their own, and that's becoming more and more popular today with folks
Hmm.
going independently. But a publisher slash label would be able to help out to get those works out to the Spotify's, the Amazons of the world, as well as registering the compositions with the performing rights organizations, which would be ASCAP, BMI, CSAC in the United States, SOCAN, Canada. So there's just a lot of different pieces there, and if you're doing it on your own, as Brenna shared, CCLI does work with the independent songwriter as well, just as one license does, but there are a lot of connection points that you end up managing if you're doing that. So it kind of it part of it I think is where's your focus, and if you have more of a leaning just towards congregational worship and you're not on the platforms as much, then maybe you do keep it in house and do a bit more independent, do it on your own. But that's for you to
Yeah.
decide. as the artist and
Absolutely.
songwriter. I
Very
was
good.
going to say that CCLI doesn't have much connectivity with SOCAN or CMMRA with those platforms, just because our licensing is it's just separate. We're licensing the rights that are not performance rights, and our paths just don't cross very often.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Just at this time, I'd just like to welcome everybody who just tuned in. If you've been tuning in since the beginning, thank you so much. It's time for us to take a little look at a little video clip we want you to check out. So this is kind of like something that's coming up, so stay tuned.
Are you writing a Christmas song? Do you want it on our Christmas CD? This year, send us your song for your chance on the CD. Submission deadline July 31st, 2022. Family Christmas Volume 3, Christmas 2022.
Well, is it
And
a
we
little
are
early to be talking about Christmas? Maybe, but I
of
bet you there's some of you still have your Christmas decorations up. All right, so that's for next year. Really excited about that. Don't forget, we also have our
next.
website, gmihub.ca. Check it out.
Hey, we still have Christmas trees up, so don't knock us,
Yeah, I
okay?
know. I haven't taken mine all down. All of it's not down yet.
Well, let's get back to this conversation. Um, okay, so I think based on our last question, I think we were trying to figure out how does CCLI and one license relate to the SOCAN CMRRA's resound and connect music. And the long and the short is there's no direct relationship. Artists
Hmm.
definitely need to make sure that if they want performance, like their royalties from performance, from reproduction, meaning people that want to re-record your music. Um, and I can't remember the other two right now, but basically
Performance, yeah.
it's the artist's responsibility to make sure their songs are listed and registered with the SOCANs, the CMRRAs, Resound, and Connect. Okay. Now with CCLI and one license, if your target audience is a faith-based organization or a church, um, and or for congregational singing, that basically if your music well, for CCLI, if your music is being sung in at least 5 different churches, then it's it's worth investing in registering your songs with the CCLI or the one license so that those churches have access to your music. Nate, Bretta, did I say it right? Did I do good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say so. And there's no reason we don't have a compete agreement. So there's no reason why you can't be listed on both services as far as we're concerned. I just want to make mention that if there's a style of worship or if there are certain types of churches that use your music, you may consider one service over the other.
Right. And thank you for saying that because I think some people might ask the question, so what's the difference between CCLI and one license? And so the difference is your focus on the style of the music, as in whether it's contemporary, if it's more contemporary evangelical, CCLI, if it's more liturgical, I think you said, you know, um,
Liturgical, yeah, or traditional in
liturgical.
nature. Yeah.
Yes, then more of the one license. So that's good to know. I did not know that before. See, I'm learning. I learn as I grow. I mean, go. Okay. Um, there was a question about Pro Presenter Easy Worship Planning Center, and I think you touched on it, but if I'm not mistaken, was that the reproduction? Is that part of the reproduction licenses that you both offer? Is that right?
There's definitely a piece there that would be a digital reproduction. It could be just lyrics flowing through an API. A reproduction could be as simple as you have the lyrics and then you're typing it in to ProPresenter or PowerPoint or Easy Worship. But those third-party platforms are a key element of this whole big picture where churches are using these solutions to pull off their services. And both of our companies would provide the rights to make those digital reproductions or physical if you're doing you're using a photocopy machine. Um, and then that solution, that activity on those platforms would be covered.
Awesome. And I assume that's the same for you on one English, one license.
Yeah,
It's the
it
same, right?
is. We give
Okay.
our organizations a lot of creativity. So if it is a worship aid, if it's a projection screen, if it's a leaflet, if it's a supplemental hymnal booklet that you're creating, there's a lot of different creative options that you have that really and truly you can choose which option is best to support your community or your worship style or perhaps a preference that your priest or pastor have. At the end of the day, those are all a reprint or a reproduction license. So the same license is going to cover you for all of those uses.
Awesome.
Mm,
Awesome.
mm,
Um, is there a cost related to getting
yeah.
music on your databases or registering with
Not,
CCLI or one
not
license?
to register with CCLI. There's no fee to register your
Okay.
works with CCLI.
Okay. With one
Correct.
license?
There's also no fee to register your works.
Excellent.
Mm,
Excellent. Okay, I think I've
good.
covered the artist questions, I think. Okay. If you are watching and you're an artist and I didn't cover your question, please put it in the chat. I'm sure Sienna will be happy to answer on behalf of One License. And Nate, I don't know if you have someone answering for you, but I'm sure that
The-
we will get that question out there.
Yeah, you're not going to get it answered in real time today I didn't send anyone on my team, but you can email IP, like intellectual property, at ccli.com, and they'll be sure to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, I'll have to make sure I get those email addresses and put that in the description. So IP@ccli.com and info@onelicense.net. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm doing good tonight. I'm so proud of
Fabulous.
me. Okay. Um, okay, so let's now switch over to the churches and faith organizations and some of the um, questions that would come from them. Now, we both have touched on different licenses that are being offered. We just talked about reproduction licensing. Um, what other licenses do your organizations provide for churches?
So you said
We're playing
reproduction, right?
chicken with
So
each other.
I know,
yeah.
I know.
So is this where
Okay, I
you'd
have to
like
make
us
sure.
to talk about streaming or additional licenses we didn't cover during the our intros?
Yes. Okay, so Nate, let's start with you. Okay, so you've talked about um, reproduction licensing, which
Yeah,
is, and I'm again clarifying, and the only reason I'm clarifying is because some people may get confused with reproduction being re-recording a song or
yeah,
re-recording something.
uh,
But for
yeah.
you all, it's more the making copies so that there's the ability to rehearse the songs. There's the ability to put the songs on a screen so that congregations can sing the songs and so forth. Correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
But
so go ahead.
there is a recording provision within the CCL where you can record the service and others could listen to it after the fact. But I think the distinction is if you wanted to record a composition which would require a mechanical license, which is something that CCLI does not offer.
Right.
No, that would be CMRRA for here in Canada. Okay,
Yeah.
but continue, Nate.
So let's see, but other licenses, the big area would be streaming, and so many churches have started streaming their services in the last 2 years, and there's been a wonder of, well, where can we post them? What types of works could we use? And you do have to use compositions that are covered by the different licensing companies that you signed on with. So CCLI, we would have a list of authorized catalogs for streaming. I know one license would have the same. That allows you, just basic streaming would allow your band to perform that song and for it to be retransmitted over the web, streaming it, or you could put it on a podcasting platform. That still is an option. It could be saved on your church website for on-demand usage or viewing at a later time. You can put it on YouTube or on Facebook. The challenges that we always throw in, or the caveats, I would say, is that when you post to a third-party platform, you're at the mercy of that platform. And if they decide that they want to mute the audio of the performance, or they simply want to take the video down, it's more out of your control. And there's nothing like attending a worship service online when the audio gets cut out and you just get to guess what everybody's singing. So posting it to your church website would give you a bit more control, or a platform where there aren't as many takedown notices. But I know, for instance, for my church, I think they've figured out what the do's and don'ts are, what works, what doesn't work. And I think you figure that out over time. Once you've learned what your swim lanes are, you can have a great experience and post it to the various platforms, so that regardless of where, you're going to have some folks that are going to gravitate towards social media and want to view it on Facebook, others who expect it on YouTube, and some who just want to go to the church website because to them that is the World Wide Web and they only know one URL. So Sierra or CSL, our streaming license, would be the big one. And then, as I shared previously, adding master recordings in is also an option. That's the big. Those are kind of the popular licenses, and when we've done Q&A times with churches over the last 2 years, streaming is where all of the questions reside. Do you need additional licensing to stream? Yes, you do. You need permission to use these works because they're not covered. This activity is not covered as an exemption, like the religious service exemption that you would have in the United States, or the exemption that's provided in Canada's copyright law. Streaming it's a separate right.
Yeah, those are things that should be considered by a church who's maybe thinking about even applying for a license. Is there maybe some factors that churches should think about while they're considering what they need to do as far as licensing is concerned?
I mean, if they're using songs that are under copyright and they want to stream their services, if you're looking at CCLI, you're going to be able to post it to these various third-party platforms or to your church website. But if you're using songs that are in copyright, you need a license to do it legally. And is it worth the risk of putting this stuff out there on the web where it is visible without getting the correct license? I'm not sure that it's worth it. And of course, in the church, we want to do the right thing. There's another license option out there that I'll just throw in just as a way to confuse. We have a company that we partner with, though this is more of a U.S. discussion, but Christian Copyright Solutions offers a streaming license as well called WorshipCast, which represents 28 million songs covered by ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC. So when you framed up the question of what questions would you ask if a church is using a broader repertoire that has its works that are outside of the Christian praise and worship sort of catalog, maybe they wanted to use Bob Dylan or the Beatles or a song from The Lion King in their worship service, you could do that with a WorshipCast license, but it's only available in the US. So I apologize for everybody that I offended with that comment, since I know that's mostly a Canadian audience. But that would be the normal answer when you say questions to consider. We'd say, well, what are you streaming? But
Yeah.
I would love to go and hang out with Nate some evening. Nate, I would love to just go and hang out with you. You sound like a lot of fun. All right.
Can I throw in one funny thing real quick? I had
Sure.
I did a webinar one time, and someone said we did a medley of the song Wonderwall, and I think it was What a Beautiful Name. is that legal and covered? And ironically, if you had a worship cast license and actually worship cast license, it would cover both parts. So it is possible to do that legally in a church
That would be
service, but
considered a parody, wouldn't it?
I'd never considered that combination. So
Yeah.
I'll never forget it.
Yeah, that's
But
great.
that raises a good point because churches, I'll say this, I don't know if you have seen this, but um, with COVID and with churches really having to rethink how they present their music, and especially if they're streaming, some churches have adopted the we've got to be a little bit more engaging online, or we have to be a little more entertaining, if you want to call it that, online. So they probably will start taking songs that people know in the mainstream world and combine it with a Christian song, and then go, okay, sure, this should work, right? Right? We should be good. Our license should be covering this, right? You know, and then
Yeah.
and then they find out, no, it doesn't. So my question about that, Nate, is that license, that worship cast license that's available in the US, will that be available in Canada, or are there conversations about that being available in Canada?
Eh, we end up talking with the team over at CCS about that, but it is I think it would be CMMRA would control the streaming rights
Right.
in Canada. So I think today and in the near future, you're better off if you connected with them to secure the rights for the songs that are outside of CCLI or One License's repertoire. If you wanted to do one of those psychedelic medleys in your streaming service.
I hear you. I hear you. I don't know if that happens in on the with the audiences that you deal with, or the churches that you deal with. The I can't say the word, liturgical. The
Liturgical.
word
It's all good. It's all right.
litur-
Think liturgy. Think
Yeah.
liturgy
liturgy.
Yes.
and then
Yes,
liturgical.
Liturgy.
liturgical. Yes. Okay. I want to put a th in there. That's why I keep stopping. But I don't know if that kind of creativity happens. I wouldn't put it past, because I do know a lot of my family go to Anglican churches, and although they're
Sure.
very traditional, every once in a while they may pull something a little bit um out of the ordinary for them, but only because it's a special holiday or a special focus or a special
Hmm.
theme for their service or something like that. So for on One Licensing side, would you have a similar type of um I guess a license to cover any of that kind of creativity, or is that just kind of slipped under the rug, or is that covered by already existing licenses that One License offers?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, at the end of the day, the answer that we always give, or the party line that we always give, is it comes down to the copyright holder. So we see this question come up all the time with, can I make a different translation to a work? Can I change the words of a work? Those are all things that the copyright holder would need to approve of. I've typically seen, just from an industry perspective, if you want to change something into a different language, that's generally something that's approved and not a
Mm.
problem. But if you're looking to change the actual words or add words or take away words, those are going to be permissions that you're going to want to seek out from the copyright holder. It wouldn't be fair for
Mm.
me to presume yes or no one way or the other. I want to come back to what Dale was asking a minute ago, though. When it comes to what churches should be considering with all of this, I would like to offer that at every step of the way, you should be pausing and asking yourself, is what I'm doing legal? Is what I'm doing appropriate? Is what I'm doing ethical? All of those things, right? And just whatever your language happens to be. If you are ordering a piece of choir music and you're buying one copy of it with the awareness that you have 25 members in your choir, um, can't Xerox that music. It's a hard and fast line. You can't purchase one copy and Xerox that music for 25 people. The same thing would go to say You can't stream your service without having your license and having your information of the copyright and licensing information without sharing it with folks. So, really, at every single step of the way, you want to be asking yourself, is what I'm doing the right thing? And should I be having some type of licensing to cover the use? We get a question all the time. If I have a hymnal resource, I've paid for the hymnal. Let's say we have 500 hymnals that are in our pews. Surely I can reprint those words and put that in our Christmas booklet, right? Well, surely I can reprint that music and put it in a wedding program, right? And the answer to both of those questions is no. So, anytime you take a work out of its original form, you're going to need a license to cover that. So, whether that's
Mm.
taking your service outside of the four walls and putting it online, that requires a streaming license. If you're taking it out of a hymnal and putting it up on a projection screen, that requires a reprint license. So, really and truly, we try to make the solutions as, my goodness, friends, as easy, as easy, as easy, as easy. We all look at this from an educational lens. We want to view this from the easiest perspective possible, but it is important to have right judgment and good discernment in every step of the way. You asking yourself, am I covered appropriately for what I'm trying to
Mm.
do? And if not, how do I go about getting that coverage?
Wow,
That's
that's
really
I
great.
good.
love
I'm
that you
just
said that.
I'm gonna throw it to commercial, but I'm gonna come back as we go to talk about taboo blanket licensing right after this.
GMIHub is accepting new songs for their 2022 Christmas compilation. To find out how to submit your song, go to www.gmihub.ca today. GMI Hub Family Christmas Volume 3. Ho, 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 ho.
So if you're a singer-songwriter, you should be excited about this opportunity because we want to put your song on our compilation CD. That's correct. So get your submissions in simply by going to www.gmihub.ca. You'll see the submissions link. And you think it's too early to get this going? I don't think so, because you got to record the song, you got to produce the song, and you got to get it to us. So we're going to give you time.
Yes. And you can get it by the end of the July so you can enjoy Christmas in July before you hand the song in and then test it. How's
Absolutely.
that? Okay,
All right,
Dale,
let's get back to our conversation.
you had a question about blankets, so blanket
Well, the whole
licensing?
thing about those other organizations talked about blanket licensing, and how does that apply to what's going on with CCLI and one license?
Let's ask our guest, Nate, Brenna.
Okay.
Yeah, many times the term blanket license will be used as to what we cover. And I think the key is to understand, well, what does the blanket cover? What is included under that? And on both of our websites, there are lists of authorized catalogs that will tell the church which which songs are covered, because the song is going to be in a catalog, and that catalog will or won't be listed in the authorized lists. On our website, we have it specific to the program, because you might have songs that are covered for streaming, but maybe they're not covered for the master streaming. So there's some of those sort of nuances there that you want to pay attention to. But generally, uh, the thought behind a blanket license and what it benefits churches with is you don't have to go to capital CMG, for instance, and get the rights to use the song The Blessing, which, by the way, there would be multiple writers, at least 4 writers on that song. So you might have to go to 3 or 4 different publishers to get approval to use that work just in your Sunday service. A blanket license allows you to spend an annual fee, and all of the works that are covered, or catalogs that are covered by that license, well, then you can use those under that program. So if it's a reproduction license, you can use it for all those reproduction activities, and it just requires you to report that activity as you do it to ensure that the rights owners in the end are fairly compensated for that activity.
Okay, awesome. Brenna, did you have anything to add from the one license perspective?
Yeah, Nate is absolutely spot on. So our publishers are who decide, and by publishers I could mean independent artists as well. But they're who decide the actual licenses that each title is approved for in the catalog. So when you look up a title on our site, we're very transparent about what we cover and what we don't cover. So you don't need a license to log in and see what options and songs you have available to you. So when you look up the song itself, there's going to be four little icons that are next to the song. Those icons will either be highlighted or diminished based on the type of license that the song is covered for, and you'll be able to see right away what type of license you need to use that work. There are always, of course, one off reasons. Nate just mentioned a second ago, perhaps it's not approved for a certain use. Entirely fine. You can certainly go back to that publishing house or independent artist and ask for direct permission. But the vast majority, overwhelming majority of the songs in our catalog are going to be covered for our reprint license, our podcast streaming license, and for our practice track license as well.
Awesome.
Well,
I
thank you for
do have to
clarifying
go.
it. That's really good.
Um, I know I'm probably going to break the stream here because, oh, pardon the pun, but I just realized there's another question that popped up about collection of royalties. Can we just clarify? CCLI one license. Do you actually collect the royalties for the songs that are used or that are licensed under, that have your licenses?
So in
Does that make
order
any sense?
to get a license, of course, a church is going to have to pay a fee. They're going to pay an
Right.
annual fee for that blanket license that we were just describing. And then
Hmm.
CCLI and one license would both take out an administration fee for the work that we do on our end to, you know, break the reporting into statements, all the different pieces that are available for administering works to the
Hmm.
churches. And the remainder would be royalty then that is paid out to the individual songwriters. Um, One additional piece to explain is that remainder, or you could say that the CCLI part, the admin fee, um, is the remainder, but the portion of royalty is paid out based on the reporting activity that's gathered during that same period. So at CCLI, we do 6 month periods of time where churches report, be from the beginning of April to the end of September, and then you start again on October 1st, all the way through the end of March. And all of that reporting activity is taken together, and then it is compared with the royalty that is gathered at the same time, and then it's divided up based on that reporting activity to ensure that the songwriters are equitably paid for the activity on their works.
Hmm.
And just to clarify, the churches that have paid for the licenses are responsible for reporting what
Yes.
songs they're using and so forth. Okay, I'm glad I asked that question. Is it the same with one license? I assume it is, but I want to ask just for sure.
Yeah, it's very similar. So we require 100% reporting compliance on our service. That's something that we're very, very passionate about. So every single work that a church or a school uses, they should be logging onto the website and reporting their usage of that work. Whether they use it once or whether they use it every single Sunday, they need to be reporting their usage. From there, we do similarly run royalty reports and compare them based off of the license subscriptions, and then we actually pay those out to the publishing houses, and the publishing houses disperse to the artists. There could be a wide variety of different contract agreements or times of year that they're paid. That is all up to the publishers themselves. So we don't theoretically pay the artist directly, we pay the artist through the publishing house. If it's an independent artist, we consider them the same thing. We pay the entity, and then the entity pays out the individual artists from there. One thing that I will mention is that we also have an administrative fee for artists who are joining our service. If you don't earn any royalties, then you don't pay any type of administrative fee. But if you do earn any type of royalty, there is a certain percentage that's with that. Be happy to talk with anybody directly if they want to know more about that process. But really and truly, the piece of this that I really want folks to take away about the reporting piece is that if you're using a work there is an obligation that you are giving a royalty for the use of that work. So while every website may have different mechanisms or different processes for what that looks like, if you're using a work, there's an obligation to pay a royalty based on that work. We all have our own ways of processing that, but the way to support artists and to have them continue using the works that they have created is to make sure that those royalties are paid. That's something we're very,
Hmm.
very passionate about. It's
Hmm.
a justice issue for us for sure.
Yes.
One thing to
And
add
trust
in,
me,
Brenna
I was gonna say artists
mentioned,
are always appreciated.
oh, sorry. Don't you love it when this happens and you talk
Yeah,
over
that's
each
great.
other? Similarly, CCLI works with the publishers, and then the publisher pays to the individual writers. So we're aligned with what One License does there. Just many times, artist and songwriter, those terms get used interchangeably, but ultimately we treat each affiliate that registers with us as a publisher, whether it's a larger publisher that administers for many writers or it's an independent songwriter that registers as a publisher. So, and I agree, reporting is it's how the rights owner gets paid, and ultimately the songwriter gets paid. There is a distinction with CCLI, I think that Brenna was alluding to. Uh, Due to the size of our program in North America, churches report every 2.5 years. Outside of U.S. and Canada, churches report year-round for all of our programs. And for Song Select, when you download activity, that download activity is automatically registered, so there isn't a need to report for that. For a master streaming license and for a rehearse license, that reporting is year-round. It's only for our CCL that churches report for a 6-month period, and then they're invited to report again 2.5 years later. And that's simply due to the fact that we have 150,000 churches in the U.S. And due to that scale, we're able to get an accurate sample of the data that reflects the whole.
I'm almost curious. There are churches that have art. They write their own music, and I
Mhm.
guess they have it registered with CCLI or with One License. Does that mean every time they play their music, they have to report it and then they get the money back? Is that how that works?
They most
Pretty
definitely
much.
don't have to register with us to use their own works because they can give themselves permission. And we try to
Okay.
encourage churches not to create that sort of loop where they're registering so that they can report their works. That's where the thought that really if your songs were used in 5 or more churches, it's not a cut and dried. If their songs are only being used in one church and they want to register with us, we'll explain kind of the need for a little bit larger of a demand. But go ahead, we'll get you into the system if you're passionate about doing it. Uh,
Mhm.
but if you're only reporting your own works, there really isn't a basis for doing that, and you're paying a license fee so you could get paid for your reporting. You don't need to.
Mm,
Thanks for
that makes sense.
clarifying that. Okay. So, um, I know we have a few more minutes left. I'm trying to think of some crazy questions that you might get. I'm almost wondering. I know you both have Q&As, and I know we talked about a couple funny situations like the, churches being a little bit extra creative with songs and kind of toying a little bit with the copyright. But I just wondered if there's any other crazy questions that you often get and what your responses would be to those crazy questions.
One that we get all the time, and I think this is why we tried not to use the word blanket license. I know that it's a, general word, but I try to avoid using it because for this very example, we have churches all the time that'll email us and say, hey, we have a one license subscription and we are meeting with our high school youth group on Sunday nights, and we want to stream The Lion King to the group so they can all watch it. Is that covered under our one license subscription? And I can understand from their perspective of, they have a licensing service and they're trying to tell someone that they're using that work, right? Like I theoretically can get my head around why somebody would come to us with that question. But the answer is no. I mean, not only is it no because Disney owns the copyright on that work and Disney is not a part of our service, but it's also a no because it's not for worship, and it's not non-commercial, and it's not within the context of a worship service. So there could be all kinds of reasons above and beyond why Lion King feels like a really obvious example of why something like that wouldn't be covered. There could be all kinds of reasons. I mean, we mentioned earlier, if you're using a Beatles song, well, that's something that you're going to need to get approval from that copyright holder. That's not the approval that you can get through our service. So that's why we're really transparent about the pieces that we cover and the pieces that we don't cover. For a lot of Catholic and mainline Protestant churches, everything they could ever need is on our service. They're not doing anything beyond the 180,000 songs that we have here. But certainly for folks who have more creative pursuits, they would want to follow up with those copyright holders directly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's great.
Nate, do you get any?
I like to make sure that churches understand, really they're the ones who are going to be on the hook if there's some sort of lawsuit that comes to light. CCLI or One License, we're not the ones who are doing the activity. So we would do our best to inform the church on what is covered, what the agreements and the terms of the agreement cover. But for the church, it's in their best interest to use content that they know is covered, because they would have to give an answer if they were, put on a stand, so to speak, and asked why they used a work. And I wouldn't want to say, well, we figured it was the Lion King was covered because of X, but ultimately CCLI isn't going to be the one who's representing that church in the court. It's going to be the church. So we try to equip and point them in the right direction. Obviously, One License does as well. I was going to say, one of the common questions that comes our way, or challenges, would be in terms of YouTube takedowns, copyright strikes. And I think it's important for churches to understand that you can use these platforms, specifically YouTube, you can use it to post your worship services, but they have smart algorithms that are working in the background that will identify the underlying composition or master recording that you're using. And it's very common to receive an email that will say, we've matched the content from this service or this file to the publisher. Nothing to be concerned of here. Just wanted to let you know that we've matched it, but it gives an option for the church to dispute ownership of that video. You have to understand that, at least with a CCLI streaming license or Streaming Plus license, you do not own that recording or the rights to that recording. You can't monetize it on your church's behalf. You most definitely can't dispute a claim by the true owner of that work, which would be the publisher or the label. So if you get those emails that say it's been matched up, you can just ignore it. The royalty is going to flow to the appropriate parties for activity that takes place on that YouTube video. Now, if you're a church that is also including your own songs that you've written and you have the rights to those, then that publisher or label shouldn't be claiming that portion of the stream. And that would be free game. But that's a very common challenge that comes up, and it creates a bit of headache for everyone involved. And ultimately, we'll point the church back to the terms and conditions that we have listed on our website that say that you can't place ads on the videos or monetize the videos on YouTube. That's the right exclusively of the publisher or the label. And you can't block the monetization on their behalf, and you can't dispute their claims. So it sounds kind of hard-handed and legalese, but ultimately that's the most challenging piece involved with streaming, at least from my point of view. And once you know who holds the cheese, so to speak, or who has the rights, and you know what your options are, it'll make life a lot easier for everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great advice. Sorry, just when said who holds the cheese, I was thinking, I know I've heard a song called Who Holds the Keys. I heard that before. I was about to sing He Holds the Cheese. Oh gosh.
Oh, now I'm interested to see if we have a song about cheese in our catalog. That's for
Yeah.
another day.
You might. You might. Um, well, this has been a great. I don't know if there's any other last comments that you want to leave for our audience, and a number of our people are probably going to be watching this on on a replay. And again, I saw questions before regarding like one license, CCLI, what's the difference? What do we do? How do we do this? And I so appreciate that you've taken the time to be with us and share this information. This is so awesome. But if there's any other last comments that you'd like to share, Brenna, we'll start with you. If you have any last comments that you'd like to share with viewers
Yeah,
now
of
and
course.
viewers to come. Go ahead.
Sure. So really and truly, our staff, we are backed by experienced music ministers who either still work in the industry or have worked in the industry previously. We're really, really passionate about music and ministry, and we're really passionate about this justice element of reporting and royalties and all of that. So we look at this educational lens, and we really and truly are happy to help. I can't overstate it enough. So feel free to email us anytime, info, at onelicense.net. Our email ticketing system allows you access to all of our team members, and we can go back and forth and make sure that we get the right best answer for you and your organization's unique needs. Our blog as well, news.onelicense.net. We have tons of webinars, helpful tutorial videos, posts that come up about different topics. We have one about YouTube claims and flags and how to handle those. So you can really and truly search for whatever topic you're looking for and find some really good stuff on there. Again, we're an education focused lens into this world. So copyright nerds, you can think of us that way too if you want to. Send us an email. We're happy to help. But otherwise, it's been wonderful to be with all of you tonight. And thank you so much for having us.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Brenna. We're so happy to have you join us. And Nate, do you have any last comments that you'd like to share with our audience now and audience to come?
Well, first off, I think our website, if you want information about CCLI, what the different programs are, what activities are covered, not covered, and then which works specifically or catalogs are covered, go to ccli.com. You can connect with our customer service team, customer service at ccli.com. And then if it's a publishing related question, you'd like to register your works, email us at ip@ccli.com. Aside from that, these sort of discussions encourage me because ultimately CCLI and One License, we're trying to resource the church. We're trying to ensure that churches can continue to thrive, have the resources that they need to do it responsibly, lawfully, equitably, and we're all doing our part to advance the kingdom of God. So I love making new friends, meeting new folks, and our goal is just to simplify that process. This complicated thing in copyright and copyright law and all these terms that we throw out today, our goal is to simplify that. So as a church, you can focus on feeding your flock and just serving the Lord. So it's great to be with all of you, and thanks for the invite.
Awesome.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
before we go, just don't just leave us. Okay, can you hang on for just a little while we just finish up? You can stick around. We'll talk to you after we finish. Um, and if you're at home and you've enjoyed what you've seen, please take the time to share this experience with people you know that are in the music industry, or they are artists or producers or people who are in the worship part of their church and doing that for their church congregations. This is a great video for them to listen to and watch. And so the church programs and the church music minister can also get access to this information. So we thank you for watching. If you watching for the first time, please just subscribe, and we thank you for that. Hit the notification bell so you'll know the next time we upload a video, and also hit that like button. We like the likes. And yeah, just so you know, our website is www.gmihub.ca, and we are so glad that we are able to be on YouTube. And so please share this That's all I'm going to say. Sorry, Cheryl. I just want people to share this. Just share.
And we appreciate that. And while you're sharing, just remember that GMI Hub, just like CCLI and One License, we are here to try and serve you. So if you have any questions or any thoughts or any topics that you would like to hear us talk about and to get people on here to talk about, please drop us a line. We can be reached at contact@gmihub.ca, and we'd love to hear from you. But for now, we want to say thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Nate, and thank you, Brenna, for joining us as well. And we look forward to having you join us again next week, as it'll be a studio talk week, and we'll be talking about live streaming and the best practices, and kind of focusing more on the tech side. But we will be talking about tech tricks and best practices for live streaming, especially for churches and larger organizations. So we look forward for you to come back and join us. Remember, we are here. We're encouraging unity, community, mentorship, and talent growth, but we encourage it because we want to see the churches, we want to see the artists, we want to see the whole gospel/Christian music industry unite and grow to be the force that it was meant to be, which was God ordained to be, um, to give Him glory and to cause others to be drawn to Him as well. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
God bless.